Sean, we've got a very special guest today from Florida, the pride of Jupiter / Miami / generally South Florida. Daniel Berger, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
So we wanted to ask you a ton of stuff. We want to ask you about your revitalized golf game, which is insanely good right now. But we kind of wanted to start back at the beginning because I think it's so interesting the way you've come up through the sport. So give us a little bit of background. You grew up in South Florida, right?
Born and raised South Florida, never lived north of Jupiter.
That's awesome.
But well, I guess the 2 years I went to school at Florida State,
Okay.
if that counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it counts.
Yeah.
You grew up south of there first, or you were born, Miami area?
Born in Plantation, lived there for a couple years, then moved down to Key Biscayne, down in Miami. Lived in Key Biscayne for the first 12, 13 years of my life, and then moved up to Jupiter, and rest is history.
He has not experienced winter like we have experienced winter.
That's right. Sean's from Wisconsin. I'm from Massachusetts. But we would go down to Florida for a little bit of vacation. But yeah, so I like the idea that going up north means going up to Jupiter.
I think I've seen snow like twice in my life, so.
Damn, we got to get you out more.
Yeah, we got to get the kids skiing.
No, it's one of those things that's cool until you deal with it for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
It's not cool anymore.
It's nice to be able to go visit it. All right, so when did you start becoming a serious golfer? Did you play a bunch of other sports growing up?
I played everything growing up. Tennis, soccer, baseball. The only thing I didn't play was football. My parents wouldn't let me play football.
Don't let you.
No.
I think it's progressive.
But yeah, you know, I mean, I played. My dad was a tennis coach. I grew up playing competitive tennis, probably to the age of 12.
Are you good?
And I mean, I like to think I was good, but I don't
Good
think
enough to play pro golf.
I don't think my dad would say I was good. But no, you know, I did a summer camp one year when I was 12 years old, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is what I want to do. I got so excited. I was like, I can't wait to go back the next day. And that was kind of the first step I ever had in golf. And I've always been that type of person that I always knew I wanted to be a professional athlete. I mean, I didn't know what sport it was going to be, but I just knew I wanted to play sports. And I just had that passion for it. And I've, you know, since I was 12 years old, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to go to the golf course, whether it's 6:30 in the morning before, you know, class, and my dad's going to drop me off. He'll pick me up. I'll go to school, and then I go back to the course until dark. And that's how it was for as long as I can remember.
I feel like I'm trying to think of a better location in the country and the world for someone who's like 10 years old and really wants to play golf than the place where all the golfers go.
Yeah.
Like, it had to be the right spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Palm Beach area, the Jupiter. I mean, it's become the Mecca of golf. I mean, you look at every single week, there's another guy moving into town. You know, Phil, I think, is moving down to Jupiter, and so there's something there for sure. And it's competitive. You know, every day we go out there, there's a million different guys that want to play games, and that's how you get better.
How do you pick and choose between who to play with?
There's certain guys that like to practice, and there's certain guys that like to play, and I'm more of a guy that likes to play. I mean, obviously there's an element of practice, but I just think you get better when you go on the course and you work on things. So that's where I've always feel like I've always gotten better. Is the more I play, the better I get, and I think a lot of guys these days, they tend to over practice a little bit.
Interesting.
You grew up kind of in this area, obviously getting better at golf, but when did you work your way into like the pro scene, you know, playing with some of the local guys or getting into money games or four balls or anything like that?
I mean, it's an interesting story, actually. When we moved up to Jupiter, my dad got in contact with Yvonne Lendo, who was one of his tennis peers back in the day, and Yvonne set us up with the pro at a course called the Die Preserve in Jupiter, and the pro, Matt Doyle, took me under his wing. He gave me a job at the course.
What was your job?
I picked the range every day.
Hell yeah.
We
like that.
Both been there, yeah.
I would set up the range on the weekends and close it down sunrise to sunset.
You got to be one of those people when you see the lines on the range, right, and you see either the stations in a row. If you see one that's like out of line,
Absolutely.
it probably has to bother you.
I'm gonna go fix it. But no, I would say that of all the golfers on the PGA Tour, none have ever picked as many ranges as I have in my life.
Oh man, I wonder who's number 2 on that list.
That would be interesting.
I don't even know who to think of.
That's pretty cool. So then, did you start to get to know? Were there pros at that point that were?
So I got really lucky because at the Die Preserve they had 10 professionals that were playing there. You know, Steve Marino, Jesper Parnevik. The list goes on, and I think I was really lucky because Steve took me under his wing, and he, you know, for a 14, 15-year-old kid, to go out there and to play with, you know, a PGA Tour player, I mean, that's pretty special. Not a lot of PGA Tour players, you know, would take someone like that under his wing. And, you know, we gambled all the time. We gambled for money that I didn't have in my pocket. And I just feel like I got so much better quicker because I had experienced a level of golf that most 15-year-old, 16-year-old kids don't experience till they're 20, mid-20s, you know what I mean? So I just think that I understood what it took to get to that level, and I was around it so often that when I finally got out there, it didn't feel any different than what I had been through my entire life.
Did you win all the, like, if you're betting with money that you don't have in your pocket, that must you did a lot of winning at the time.
There was a couple funny good stories. We were putting on the putting green, me and Steve, and we were putting for $500. I don't know why for $500. I had $12 in my pocket, and I beat Steve on the putting green, and he was so pissed. He was like, it was right before sunset. I mean, you couldn't see anything. And he's like, we're going to go play the last 3 holes for double or nothing right now from the back tees. And I've never played the back tees in my life. And so we go play the holes. He ends up beating me. I get really pissed. I'm like, double it up again. We play for another 500. He beats me again, and I had nothing. So he took my iPod, and he had my iPod for 3 years. I shit you not. Steve Marino kept my iPod for 3 years.
How old? 12?
I mean, I was 15 at the time. Yeah.
At the exact age at which an iPod is like the best thing that you own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The most important possession you have.
So he took that for 3 years, and he actually finally gave it back. I paid him back when I got on the web.com tour, and he gave me back the iPod. And I was like, you can't tell this story to people.
Yeah,
so.
I was gonna say, did that feel good? Was that like a validation when you could pay him back and just, you know, symbolically get your iPod
I did,
back?
yeah, and I told him, I was like, don't be spreading this story to other people.
That's
so.
awesome. I'm curious, at what age are you too good to be picking the range anymore?
You're never too good to be picking the range.
Okay.
I think there's a humility that comes with going back to the golf course and kind of getting back to your roots and just feeling like a kid again.
So in the same way that, you know, a pyramid of balls out of line would bother you, you probably don't hit stingers at the guys picking the range.
I do not hit stingers at guys picking the range. Camilo did that to me one time, and the cart that I was driving was like 20 years old, and it was all rusty, like on the side, and he slapped into the rust, hit me in the face, and I was like, after that, I was like, I'm not hitting balls into pickers anymore.
It's like a PSA. We should
Stop hitting stingers at ball pickers.
Stop hitting the range cart pickers. Yeah. Take us inside the Jupiter games, like right now. You know, how do those get set up? Do a lot of pros really like to play these games week in and week out?
Yeah, I mean, like a simple example would be like on a Saturday, you go to the Bears Club, there's 15 pros out there, and it's kind of like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? We usually play, you know, we all want to play, so we'll get like a game of 5 or 6 guys, and we'll play a game of Wolf or find some individual matches. But everyone's super friendly, and everyone's so competitive. You know, it's like it's a way to continue your preparation on an off week for a tournament. It's the same juices flowing, and everyone wants to win. So I think it's a huge advantage to have.
Is the game Wolf? Is that typically the game?
That is the game, yeah. I mean, I just think it's not my favorite game because you can play really well and lose a lot of money, or you can play really poorly and win a lot of money. It's kind of a luck of who you're getting picked, but it's entertaining, so that's why we play it.
Yeah, I think I lived in Florida for a couple of years, played some really poor professional golf, but I think people underrate just how much time golfers have on their hands when they're at home, like in between tournaments or anything like that. But it's cool the way guys at different levels, you know, mini tour guys get to play for fun, or well, not for fun, but play, you know, not in tournaments with guys like yourself, and, you know, I'm sure push you guys to say, wait a minute, if I don't stay on top of my game, there's a lot of guys that want my spot.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's 125 PGA Tour jobs, and there's a million people that want that. You know what I mean? So you have to constantly be doing everything you can to get better. And you look at the generation of players that are coming out, they're so much better than they were 15, 20 years ago.
This is a trip for me because I've been working in golf just long enough that you were the generation coming out, and now you're talking about it.
I know, it's
so
crazy.
weird for me, man.
I mean, you see the names that are coming out. You know, Colin Morikawa, he's early 20s. He's won a major championship. You know, the young guys that are now coming off the Korn Ferry Tour, they're the same way. I mean, you know, you're you're so used to playing at such a high level, from the amateur to the college to the the mini tours to the Corn Ferry Tour, that you're just set up to be a better professional golfer when you finally get to the PGA Tour.
Yeah. So you have been to the top, early on in your career. You were PGA Tour Rookie of the Year. And then, you were still playing obviously insanely high level golf, but now you're in this resurgence. What happened in the in-between, and what happened to get you back where you are now?
Yeah, there was a period of time where I had some injuries. I hurt my finger/wrist, and that.
Wait, which finger?
It was my right hand ring finger/wrist, and it was just one of those things that I probably should have taken more time off, but I was just felt like everyone was passing me, and instead of spending that time resting, doing the things that I needed to do, I tried to play through it, and it just got worse and worse, and eventually I ended up taking the time off. I think it was probably a year and a half ago. I missed 4 months, I think, and then it just eventually got better, and I could do the things I needed to do to prepare to play golf. You're used to hitting 1,000 golf balls a week, and that goes down to 200 because you just don't feel like you can do it in a healthy way, and your game suffers, and I feel like that was the biggest thing. And I started working with a new coach a year ago, Cameron McCormick in Dallas, and that really, I feel like, changed my game. I was consistently below average around the greens, chipping, putting, and started working with him, and he's really changed my my outlook on short game and putting. And last year or this year, I had one of the best years of my life chipping. I was first in scrambling, which I would have never thought that I would have been first in scrambling.
I realized you were first in scrambling.
And I was top 20 in putting. So, you add that up, and you're going to have a successful year if you can hit it halfway decent.
Do you have any universal chipping tips, maybe from my co-host Sean here, that would just really take him to the next level?
I haven't seen your game, but I think it wouldn't be too hard to fix. No, I think the biggest thing I learned is to work on a variety of shots, to test yourself, to constantly be challenging yourself, playing little games, hitting the shots that you wouldn't necessarily hit on a normal practice day, where you give yourself the downhill bunker lie or the side hill chip shot or hitting it out of the rough, and just giving yourself a different variety of shots that when you get on the course it's familiar. You're not like,
Danielle Kang was saying this morning, she's like, I spend 3 times as much time in my short game than I do my irons. Just every single shot.
Interesting.
It makes a huge difference.
I thought it was a little ironic that, so you went through, the injury, a little bit of a valley, and you've come back up, and part of that has been because of Cam McCormick, and now Jordan Spieth is kind of gone into a little bit of a valley, and people want him to lose Cam McCormick. It's just like, I guess what people probably, everyone's situation's different, right?
Absolutely.
And Cam McCormick can work for you, and he can work for Jordan Spieth. But some people are just like, Jordan needs a break. He needs to change things up.
Yeah.
And so you changed coaches. Is that a total reset button? Do you just wipe the slate clean?
It's so challenging because, for me, I had worked with one coach my entire career for 10 plus years, and you're used to hearing one thing and you're used to hearing one perspective, and then you kind of get a different perspective, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean,
it can be bad, huh?
Some of the hardest things for a professional golfer to deal with is once you open these doors of information, can you close them? You know what I mean?
Boy.
It's a challenge, and that's you got to give guys like Bryson credit, who have all these doors open and have all this information coming at him, and he's able to process it and close the door and hit the shot. And for some people that doesn't work, and I think in Jordan's when you look at Jordan's game, he's one of the best to play the game. He's so young. I mean, he's 26 years old. Golf is so incredibly hard. You're going to have those ups and downs, and I think when you stick it through, eventually you come out on top. And for someone as talented as him, he'll figure it out. I mean, I know he's going through a difficult time, but sometimes it just takes one round at an event to really build your confidence, and that can change your whole perspective of how you're playing.
Did you have that doubt? Did you kind of feel that? I mean, when you're out for 4 months, I know Brooks Koepka has talked about it. It's hard because it can be that feeling like the golf world is kind of passing you by,
forgetting about you.
Did you always believe that much in yourself that you're like, look, I'll be fine, I just need to get back out there? Or was it tricky?
I mean, it's definitely tricky. I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is to be able to believe in yourself when you're at your lowest point. but you kind of have to go back to like your inner child almost, like what was fun for you back then, and kind of build on those things, and eventually you start to see the success, and the confidence is really what makes the biggest difference. I mean, if you get up to a tee shot and there's water on the left and you're concerned about hitting it in the water, I mean, you're going to have a real trouble playing golf that day. But if you can get up there and you have no fear, I mean, I'd rather be fearless and have a terrible golf swing because I know I'm going to perform better than have, you know, a great golf swing and I'm concerned about where I'm going to hit it. Yeah. So I think the confidence aspect is massive. I think it's one of the most underrated things that, you know, golfers can have.
You've always said it was like you have to be unafraid to take it deep. You have to be so confident that in your ability that maybe I'll go freaking low today, maybe I won't go freaking low today, but like
a little bit irrational confidence.
Yes.
No, I mean, the way I used to put it was I had to piss myself off when I was 5 or 6 under, you know, like F this, I don't want to be 6 under, I want to be 8 under, you know. If you just if you're just settling for that number and you're okay with it, you're never going to kind of get to that next level of shooting those really low scores. And that's something that I kind of learned at a young age. And I think the more that I challenged myself, sometimes I would go play the ladies' tees. Nice. And I would try to shoot as many under par as possible, because golf is about scoring. And you know, you play a golf course like we have last week at the US Open, which is incredibly hard, and then you play East Lake, which is incredibly hard, and the week before that was Olympia Fields, which was incredibly hard. Your golf game doesn't feel that bad, but you're shooting even par, 1 over par, and you're like, man, I'm just not scoring. Yeah. So you got to find ways to be able to get your mind into that stage where I can go out there and make 6, 7, 8 birdies in a round. And sometimes that's going and playing, you know, the ladies' tees, or going and, you know, figuring out a way to make birdies.
What's the lowest round you've ever shot?
In a PGA Tour event?
No, or at home, practicing, something where you pretty much have holed most of your putts.
I shot 61 at the Bears Club before I went to Colonial, and I figured that was
some good vibes.
Yeah, that was some pretty good vibes going into to Colonial. I was like, I think I'd played 6 or 7 rounds leading up to heading out for Colonial, and I was like 30 or 40 under par, and I was like, man, if I just keep doing this, I'll be in pretty good position.
That is evidence for exactly what you said earlier about how you are much more of a player than a practicer. Like, you could bang balls before Colonial, and you had to a little bit, but like to have a number like, okay, I'm 30 under par my last 4 rounds out here, like that's confidence building before an actual PGA Tour tournament.
Yeah, and I read something not too long ago that Rory said, and he was like, when I'm not playing great, I try to play my way out of it, you know, play as much golf as I can to play my way out of whatever funk I'm in. And I took that to heart, because I think, you know, you can't sit out there and work on your technique for 6 hours a day, because at the end of the day, all you're trying to do is get the ball in the hole in as little shots as possible. And if you're thinking about where your club needs to be or whatever, you're not going to do that. So that was something that I think really helped me.
How do we get this guy to like spend a little time north of Florida?
Oh yeah.
Just like well, that's what I was thinking.
Skiing,
you're playing so well. You're in the mix for a Ryder Cup team that happens to be in Wisconsin, early October.
Yeah.
You're gonna be cold.
It will be cold, and I feel like you know, having Captain Stricker been my captain when I played the President's Cup was probably a good thing. You know, he's been around me. He knows what I'm about. He's been in the team rooms with me, so I think that's definitely going to work to my advantage. But in the end, you just got to continue to play great golf. And you look at, you know, the Americans, and there's so many great players. It's like you go down the list right now, and it's really hard to pick.
You could field a Jupiter Ryder Cup team, and it would be pretty.
It would be pretty good.
Most of the Ryder Cup team.
Yes, it is.
Do you guys hang out? Not necessarily the Ryder Cuppers, but the Jupe crew, like socially, outside of just the golf course? Are you guys friends?
Absolutely. I think as time has gone on, and you know, players have, you know, the guys that I grew up with, they're starting to get married, they're starting to have kids, their families are starting to grow a little bit more, and I think that takes away a little bit from, you know, the relationships that we have. I mean, not to knock it or anything, but and also, you know, we're on completely different schedules a lot of the time. So, you know, one guy's played 3 weeks in a row, the other guy hasn't played in 3 weeks, you know, so someone doesn't want to play golf, someone does want to play golf. It's challenging, but all the friends that I've had in the game of golf, from the PGA Tour to the Korn Ferry Tour to amateur golf, they're still my friends, and we still do things outside of golf, which is a great different perspective to have to see these guys when you're not competing with them every day.
Do you see much of Tiger down there? Does he pretty much stay in Tigerland, or does he come play some of these games?
No, I think he pretty much stays in Tigerland. I think he's got his group of kind of, Justin and a few other guys that he likes to play with. But, I think they play mostly at Medalist, and I'm not a member there. I mean, we get games out there all the time, but I don't like to, overdo my welcome.
Okay.
I played a couple times, and
Yeah. That's my last question. You remember at the Bears Club? Is that the only place you remember?
I'm a member at the Dive Preserve and at Turtle Creek too, which is a little 18-hole course right by my house.
How does Juke Boy, the Juke Boy, now a PGA Tour player can choose pretty much wherever he wants to be a member? How does he make those decisions? How did you decide where you want to go?
Well, Mr. Nicholas had a big influence on the Bears Club, obviously, being who he is, and my dad played a lot of tennis with him on the weekends. He's a big tennis fan,
Awesome.
So we had a little bit of a relationship there. And then I also I lost to Mr. Nicholas's son Gary in the Palm Beach County Amateur when I was 14 years old or 15 years old, and that was kind of the first real experience I ever had with him. He was watching, and so I just think our relationship has kind of grown from there. And he's someone that is super open. I can call him up and say, hey, you want to grab lunch? I wanted to chat with you
You've
about
seen him
something.
play tennis.
Yeah, I mean,
How's
not
his
as
tennis game?
it's not as good these days as it was before. He's definitely getting up there in age, but he's got a great grass court in the back of his house. And
Sweet.
when Wimbledon comes around, my dad will bring some of his players to train out there before. So he's a great guy, and you just go to places that you're comfortable. I mean, they treat you so amazingly out there. They've got a par 3 course, 5 different chipping greens. I mean, it's kind of just you can get as good as you want to get out there, and that's what it comes down to.
Last question. What is it about Jupiter? I mean, you grew up there, so you've always been there, but what was the magnet that started drawing everyone there to begin with, and that has made it this international capital of the world for golfers?
Well, for me, it's always been the water, the beach access, the fishing. Doing that type of stuff for me is kind of my outlet away from golf. And I grew up on the water. I got my boater's license when I was 10 years old, so.
Yeah.
I mean, in the summertime, that's what I would do. I'd wake up at 6 in the morning, take the flats boat out, go fishing. So I've just always been around the water, and there's really nowhere better in the world, in my opinion, than Jupiter in terms of that. You go 6 miles offshore, and you're fishing for tuna and wahoo and dolphin, and so I mean, it really doesn't get any better than that. But I think nowadays it's like you look at the quality of the golf courses. I mean, there's 50 golf courses that are unbelievable within a 10-mile radius, and you have all these different opportunities to play these courses and get these games that you start to see. Some of even the Europeans are starting to come over now, and it has become a Mecca. So I mean, it was a nice little quiet piece of paradise.
You're never leaving.
I'm never leaving. I'm definitely never leaving, but it's definitely not as quiet as it was once.
That means we got to work on our game so we can come down and hop in one of these games.
Anytime you want.
Appreciate that. All right, Daniel Berger, thanks so much for joining us on the Drop Zone.
You got it.